I want you to think about something for a moment. If church attendance alone was a criteria to determine our spiritual development, wouldn't that be awesome? Think about it. Those that are here and here on a weekly basis, I mean, the best grade I got in school was attendance. I rarely, if ever, missed a day of school in the school year. We had one of those households where, unless you were dead, you were at school. And when your mom's the teacher, you got to go to school. No, I'm just kidding. It was part of that for a few years. But we get almost near perfect grades if that was our criteria of judging our spiritual growth and development. But the matter of the fact is this. Although church attendance is supposed to nurture our spiritual growth and development in our lives, help us to grow mature and strong, many of us who have come week after week are not any stronger than somebody who has just joined the church for the first time and found a new relationship with Jesus Christ. They seem to have more fire, more desire to serve Him and to study and to learn about Him than us that have been here year after year, week after week. Maybe, just maybe, that is the reason that we've had so many people leave the church. Maybe, just maybe, that is the reason we have so many young people as they grow into their young adulthood decide that they no longer have an interest in the church, because even though we have attended church every week, the spiritualness of our homes, the spiritualness of our lives does not measure up. Still with me? Yes. So a couple questions I have to ask as we get started here today. You know me, I like to ask questions, and let's try to answer it from the questions. Is it possible that a person could be part of the crowd, part of the church, following Jesus, yet we do not feel the presence of Jesus in our lives? Is it possible to talk about spiritual things and yet find that we are spiritually unsatisfied in our own lives? In other words, I got the knowledge, but I don't have the heart. Last question. Is it possible to pray for spiritual blessings, yet when it is given to us, it does not change our lives at all? Some hard questions to ask. I don't know that I am going to be able to answer each one of those today as we go through this, but there's something for us to think about and to consider in our lives. A little Christian writer named Ellen White wrote in a book, My Life Today, kind of sums up an answer, a possible answer for these questions. It says this: to talk of religious things in a casual way, to pray for spiritual blessings without real soul hunger and living faith, avails little. The wandering crowd that pressed close to Christ realized no vital power from the contact. But when the poor, suffering woman in her great need put forth her hand, touched the hem of Jesus' garment, she felt the healing virtue. Hers was a touch of faith. Christ recognized that touch, and He determined there to give a lesson for all followers to the close of time, us. He knew that virtue had gone out of him, and turning about in the throng, he said, "Who touched me? Who touched my clothes?" Surprised by his questions, his disciples answered, "Thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest, Who touched me?" The question I have today is this: what made the touch of this woman different from all the other people that touched him that day. Close your eyes and imagine the scene. Jesus is walking through a town. Crowd of people hear about it, and they crowd about this teacher that they've heard about, maybe not even believe in. Some believe, who knows what it is, but they're crowded. It's a crowd of people. He's being touched by people all day. Some people may have even intentionally reached out and touched him that day themselves with no change in their life. What was it? One, hers was a touch of desperate need. Desperate need. The second, it was a touch out of utter determination. She had no other hope. Everything had been tried for this woman. The third, it was a touch of unwavering faith in the person she was going to touch. Unwavering faith. In Luke, the 8th chapter, in verse 43, it tells us this about the story. Now, a woman having a flow of blood for 12 years, who had spent all her livelihood on physicians and could not be healed by any. This is the woman that we find there, right? A woman that had done everything she could do to be healed. Now, I personally can relate to this lady. No, I've not had an issue of blood, but I have had an ailment in my body for a number of years now that is mysterious to all doctors at this point. You, as a church, prayed for me about a year ago right now. Bad news is, I'm back, and we're going through the process again. So I understand what this woman was dealing with in some ways in this. I can relate to her desperate need. I have been at times, thank goodness it's usually at home when no one else is around, curled up and saying, why, God, is this happening? What was the woman's desperate situation? She was physically desperate. All health was gone from her. She had no other place to go. She had done everything that she could do. And I'm not saying that Jesus was her last resort. In my mind, when I'm thinking of the story, very possibly she's never in 12 years had an opportunity to be close to where Jesus was. She's probably heard about this man, Jesus, probably heard about his healing from other places, other people. And in her mind, she knows that this is the one that it is. And now her health is gone from her. Number two, she is financially desperate. We're told that she has gone to all the doctors. Lisa and I know something about being financially desperate with doctors. We have a chosen deductible in our household for our health insurance that is rather large because we save on our monthly premiums. I met that deductible in January of last year because we were going doctor to doctor, having every test that you could have tested. I don't know if there's anything else they can test me on. So I understand financially desperate. It's gone, and it's wondering where is it going to come from. She has also become spiritually desperate because in her condition, in the belief at that time, she was unclean to go to the temple and to have services. She couldn't even come like I did last year and have the church come about me and pray for me. So spiritually, she was feeling desolate and desperate and in desire, need of healing. Now, here's a tough question. I believe her condition reflects all people that are apart from Christ and apart from a spiritual journey with Christ. Physically, we are moving towards death apart from Christ. Physically, If we do not have a relationship with Jesus Christ, death is assured us. Permanent death. Financially, money cannot buy what we need in our lives. No amount of money that anyone has here, we could pool all of our resources together, and they would not do us any good in our relationship with Jesus in being healed. It would do no good. Spiritually, the sins that are in our lives that we are unwilling, for whatever reason, to give up, are separating us from God and that spiritual healing that we seek and desire also. Do you see your condition? Is not a whole lot different than hers. We are in need of a touch of faith in our lives. We are in need of the healing that she desperately wanted and sought in her lives, more than her today in our lives. Luke 8:44 says, came from behind, she, the woman, came from behind and touched the border of his garment, and immediately the flow of blood stopped. Immediately. By a touch. Not of him physically, just of his robe he was wearing that day. Oh, by the way, that robe that she touched, that part of the robe she touched, was probably dirty and dusty and filthy from his travels. What she needed to overcome to touch the garment. What was it? One, the great crowd surrounding him. It was immense. You ever been in a crowd of people? I know my wife is over there and I need to get to her. And try to get through a tight crowd of people. It's hard. It takes work. It takes energy in itself. Another thing she had to get over was the attitude of the disciples themselves. I picture the disciples kind of acting like security guards as best they could of that day, trying to protect Jesus, walking through the crowd, trying to push people back, give him room, make way, he's coming through. What about the importance of Jesus' mission? He wasn't just casually going for a stroll that day. He was on a journey to go someplace and do something. So he had a mission. We had a conference president one time that at camp meetings, conference presidents get pulled at from every angle you can imagine, from anybody to everyone. And so when he walked from meeting to meeting, he would put his hands in his pocket, put his head down, and walk. When you see someone like that, you don't put your hand out to shake their hand, right? You don't make eye contact with them. And that's the way he got from place to place. I don't know if that's how Jesus was acting that day, what he was doing, we don't know. But he had a mission he was on and going to. And what about her appearance? 12 years she's been like this. She's probably pale, weak, poor. Probably didn't look good. Her face, her body was probably thin. She looked sick. Like I said, her energy is all sapped out of her from dealing with this. And yet she's fighting these crowds. She's trying to fight her way through to get through. But in Mark of the same story, Mark chapter 5, for she said, if only I can touch his clothes, I shall be made well. If only I could touch. It's a touch of faith. It's a touch of belief. A person can go to heaven without a lot of things. He can go to heaven without health. He can go to heaven without fame, education, beauty, wealth, a great name. He can go to heaven without culture. He can go to heaven without friends. And the list goes on and on and on and on about things that you and I can go to heaven without. But there's one thing that you and I cannot go to heaven without. We cannot go to heaven without a relationship, believing in faith in Jesus Christ. It is impossible to get there, friends. And I'm not talking about just a knowledge of Him. I'm talking about a living, experienced, life-vibrant, life-changing relationship, faith in Him. We can't do it. It's impossible to do it. Back in Luke chapter 8, verses 45 and 46, and Jesus said, "Who touched me?" All denied it. Peter and those with him said, "Master, the multitude, the throng, press you, and you say, 'Who touched me?' But Jesus said, 'Somebody touched me, for I perceived power going out of me.'" Trembling there, her testimony is shared. She shares with him why I touched you. And she declared it before everyone that was in the crowd that day. I believed that if I could only but touch the hem of your garment, that you could heal me. Not, I believed if I could only touch the hem of your garment, I might be healed. It's possible that I would be healed. I believe if I touched the hem of your garment, you could heal me. Christ's response to her faith, "Who touched me?" Sensitive to the touch. Virtue has gone out of him. Many surrounded Jesus that day. Everyone in that crowd had the opportunity to receive the same blessing the woman received, if they would have believed. Everyone in that crowd could have been healed of whatever was in their life, spiritually or physically, if they would have believed like she believed. Luke 8:47 says, "Now when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came forth trembling and falling down before him. She declared in him in the presence, and all the people reasoned that she had touched him and how she was. I don't believe that the blood just stopped flowing in her immediately. I believe that when she touched Jesus, the blood didn't just stop. Her face changed, her body changed, her energy came back to her, and she was ready to go. Because Jesus does not heal part way. Jesus heals the whole thing. Only her words lasted. Her words are the only words from the crowd that we know that day. Her words and her interaction with Jesus are the only interactions that we see from that day. Because they're powerful words. They're life-changing words, words of faith and belief in Jesus Christ himself. In touching Jesus, she is able to touch us today by her testimony. By touching Jesus, she shows us what true faith and belief in the one person who can save us, the one person who can heal us physically and spiritually means. So here's a couple of questions for us. How do we get the most out of our weekly spiritual attendance in church and grow spiritually? And how can we make our church experience a spiritual benefit? Three things I think we need to do. We have to press through to Jesus. How do we do it? We have to come to church, come to prayer meeting, wherever we gather together. We need to come to Him with all of our needs. We can't leave one of them at home and say, this is too big for Him right now today. I'll take it next time. He says, come as you are. Bring everything to me. Because I don't want to heal just a part of you. I want to heal a whole part of you. Everything. We have to come with the determination and faith. What does that mean? We have to come with the determination and faith to our services on Sabbath morning. That no matter who's teaching the Sabbath school lesson, whoever's teaching here, whoever we have conversations with in the foyer before or after church or downstairs, we're not going to let them deter us from a spiritual blessing today. I can't tell you how many church services I personally have gone to and not cared about the Sabbath school teacher or the preacher or their style or whatever it was. And when I've gone determined to get a spiritual blessing that day, I don't care who it was, I received a spiritual blessing because something they said somewhere meant something to me. And I was fed. But when I've gone and said, shut it off, they're teaching, he's preaching again, I went away feeling shut off, empty. You see, some of this is a choice on our part. What do we choose to receive? What blessing do we choose to receive from Jesus today that He is asked to give you today because you came here today? My guess is someone here today is going to receive a blessing from something that I said that I had no intention on giving to anybody. Because you had a need. And you came searching for that need. And just something that I said triggered a thought process, something in your life that meant meaning to you. And you're going to go home, you're going to think about it. It's going to be a blessing to you for this next week and your relationship with Jesus Christ. Come with determination. Pay no attention to doubters and critics. Surprise, surprise, and you're not going to surprise me by this. I'm sure there's more than one or two people here that really would wish that Dale Morrison would just stay home and stop preaching at our church. I understand that. But as you share that with your people around you, you're putting doubt and questions in their mind. So if you have that problem, come talk to me. You hear people doubt something that's in the Bible and question, well, what does this really say? Study it. Ask other people questions. Find the answers for yourself. But don't give room to people that are doubting and want to be critical. Oh, the church service is too long. Sabbath school is too short. The food's too cold. The food's too hot. The music, oh, can you believe the music they sang today? Good grief. We say those things, without those things creep into our lives, we're going to leave here with a negative attitude, and we're not going to be lifted up in a spiritual presence in Jesus Christ. We're going to be spiritually filled and lifted up. You're not going to be any different than when you walked in the doors this morning than when you leave this afternoon. No different at all. And Jesus says, come, be filled, be lifted up. We can't allow ourselves to be distracted from our ultimate goal, even if it's not the same goal as someone next to you, to receive a blessing in Jesus Christ. The woman that day received more than she ever anticipated in her life. She was healed of her illness. That's a blessing, right? Healed of the illness. But you know what else she received? In Luke 48 or 8:48 it says, and he said to her, daughter. What did she just become? Part of the family of God. She became a child of God in an instant by her touch. Daughter, be of good cheer. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace. I don't know about you, but when I see that and I think about that, what more could we ask for? But I don't know what to ask. I don't know all my needs. Besides that, there's 40, 50, 60 people at church today, and if they all go home and start asking God for all the needs, He doesn't have room for my needs too. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20. Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think. I don't know about you, I can think big. My thinking is a lot of trouble some days. I can think really big. But now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us. Power is working in us. Is it the power of Jesus Christ or the power of doubt? The power of faith or the power of on trust? He is seeking to do exceedingly and abundant things in each of our lives. Small, in between, in everything that we do, say, if we will only ask him. The problem is sometimes we don't ask him. The problem is sometimes we don't want his life to live within us and live through us. The problem is sometimes we're just scared. I believe this woman today was scared. And she of Jesus, and she worked her way through that crowd, and it was hard, and she worked, and she was determined, and she was not going to give up until she was close enough to touch the hem of his garment. You and I today don't have to work that hard. We just have to say, Jesus, here I am. I believe, I have faith in you. Take me. I give you all that I am. Do exceedingly and abundantly good in me. And live out your life within me. Your presence is requested. Father God, as we come to you today, we just ask and we plead that we have the faith of this woman. If we could only but touch, we know we can be healed. If we'd only but reach out, if we'd only but go home today and say, Lord, here I am. Hear my plea. Heal me. Father, I pray that you live out your life within each one of us, each and every day. Best things in your name. Amen.